What is the biggest reason the Suns won here?
I believe it was execution by the Suns down the stretch. And remember now, they're doing this without Chris Paul, their leader, the guy that has he has 25, 26 25, 26 assists and only a handful of turnovers in the playoffs this year. So for them to be able to execute like they did down the stretch, because Skip, if you remember, Paul George hits the 2 free throws. Devin Booker races back up the court. He hits a quick jumper. I think it took like 4 seconds off the clock. PG comes right back, hits a fadeaway, comes right. So and then now all of a sudden they foul PG. You know you got to get stopped because you missed. Devin Booker turned the ball over, Skip, and so now you got to foul PG. And I told you not to do. Now, Skip Bayless has spent the better part of 5 years calling this man George Paul, says he's a complimentary superstar.
Until this year.
No,
well, that's Indiana George Paul.
He was like that in OKC too. But anyway, you've hit your wagon to this guy and said, this is the guy that's going to pull us to
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Now
is it my turn?
No, it's not your turn just yet. And so for me, I think that was the biggest play. And considering, Skip, after the game, Monty said, we've never practiced that play. And I was close to Deandre Ayton's stat line, Skip. I said 24 and 12. He got 24 and 14. And I didn't really know what happened, Skip, because I was like, did Jay Crowder throw the ball in? I thought he threw the ball in, Skip, because I was as stunned as everybody else. I knew the ball had gone in, but I'm like, did he throw the ball in for out of bounds? That's going to be no good. And then when they go back, I was like, oh, Deandre Ayton, he ended up dunking it home. But, Skip, I think you have to give the Suns credit. Because a lot of times when you lead for as long as they led, and all of a sudden you end up giving the lead up late, a lot of times, we've seen that happen in the playoffs. Teams succumb to that pressure like, okay, well, we saw that with Utah. We saw that with the 76ers. We've seen that a lot. Teams that lead basically for the whole game, and all of a sudden they fall behind and they can't recover. Give the Suns credit. I love what I saw from the Clippers also, Skip. T-Lue got them playing hard. I mean, without Kawhi Leonard, honestly, Skip, I really thought it's like, you know what? Okay, it's going to be a close series, but Chris Paul's going to come back. I'm not so sure even when Chris Paul's come back, they're going to run away with this series, considering what I've seen from the Clippers, minus Kawhi and against Utah. But, Skip, I thought their execution down the stretch, and then Cameron Payne. Skip, what can I say about this kid? He's 18-1, 18 assists, 1 turnover, shooting 50% from the floor, in the absence of Chris Paul. Now, I'm not saying he's Chris Paul because he's not. We know what Chris Paul is. But I think Monty Williams and this team is very pleased with the play they've gotten from Cameron Artis-Payne. So with that being said, I thought it was the execution down the stretch and Cameron Payne, the way he played throughout the series, in this game, was the difference in why they won the game. Give the Clippers credit. I don't believe they're going away. All the Suns did was hold serve at home. Now you got to go try to steal one of these things on the road in the next 4 days.
Now it is my turn. I am devastated by what I watched last night. It was as excruciating as any game I've ever watched.
Worse than Game 6 of your Spurs losing?
It was more extended agony. Because at least the Spurs in Game 6 in 2013 didn't get robbed.
Right.
At least it came down to the greatest clutch shot I've ever seen. And to your point, that was the greatest inbounds pass I've ever seen. Right. But it was after the fact of the Clippers getting robbed. And I need to apologize publicly to my wife, Ernestine, and my daughter, Hazel, because they had to endure my wrath after that game. I was out of my mind. I was screaming. I apologize to those two for some of the language I used because it wasn't pretty. And yet...
Did your neighbors hear you?
Probably woke them up. They go to bed early. But the point is that you got me on one point. Paul George did miss 2 free throws. But in my view, those 2 free throws got rendered irrelevant. And before I leave Paul George, the thing that's getting lost, I'm sure there's a lot of pandemic pee out there.
It is. It deserves it so.
But the salvo of scoring, of clutch shot making from Paul George from the 2:41 mark of the fourth quarter down to those 2 missed free throws was off the charts great. It was all-time clutchness. They would not have been in the position to win without Paul George going straight on, full out playoff P. I've never seen anything like it. Even I, having become a fan of his, didn't expect him to do what he did. If we could just see what happened starting at 2:41 left, he made his first three. But this is like Trae Young, going 5 for 23 and finally making three shots in the fourth quarter. Then he goes to the free throw line, and that looked pretty good to me, didn't it? That's 56 seconds left. And that was a little shaky, but it went in, and that cut the lead to 1. And then he comes right back and all the way through to the basket, and he made that, and that gave him a lead by 1. And this is the shot of the night from Paul George. That's going back and forth, tete-a-tete, mano-a-mano with Devin Booker, and that's as clutch as it gets.
Yes.
That put them back up 1.
Correct.
And then, to your point, he goes to the free throw line, and when I expected him to at least make 1, the first one goes up, and it bounces around, and it wants to go in, and then it decides, nah, not tonight, and it falls off. And then he overcompensates on the next one, and he says, I'm going to make sure this is up. I'm going to get this one up. I'm going to make sure, and it hits nothing but iron on the backside. Listen, I'm upset with him a little bit. If he had charged that, if he had known that was long, because he had a chance to fight for the long rebound, and Bridges got it.
Right.
But he got it to his credit, because you're supposed to block out the shooter, obviously. Is it you or me? I got him. Right. So, but if Paul at 6'8" had gone forward, he might have been able to at least have a jump ball off that, and it might have changed the game. So now we come down to the madness of the conclusion of this game. And in my life of watching sports, in my extended career, my extensive career, I've never been more mystified, more baffled, more out of my mind over a review call than I was over what happened at the end. So with 3.3 seconds left, they swing the ball, they get it out of Devin Booker's hands, and they swing it to the corner, and Bridges misses a 3. Help me out.
It goes to Crowder first.
Yep. Goes to Crowder, then swing, and here's the shot, and it misses pretty badly. Help me out. Did that not go off Deandre Ayton's hands? Because he's the 7-footer. It appears to me...
Man.
Huh?
I think Terrence Mann hit it.
No, it's straight off the 7-footer's hands. And Terrence Mann knows it, because he turns and claps. He's pushing the other way and clapping like we just won the basketball game. And remember, Terrence Mann grew up in a coaching household, because his mom has been a college and now a pro coach, obviously, with your Atlanta WNBA team.
Yeah.
So he grew up in a coach's household. He has high basketball IQ, and he knew exactly what had just happened. That's off Ayton's hands. And what baffled me the most was, and I'm not trying to take ESPN to task, but they didn't have an angle on it. Like we have that big overview angle, but usually on those review plays, don't we get the side out of bounds? Don't we get the from the baseline? Don't we get it from 17 angles? So during the review, all I heard from the commentator crew, and I love those guys, seriously, Mark Jackson and Coach Van Gundy, they're the best. Mike Breen is they're great on great.
Yes.
But they spent the whole extended review time talking about what will Phoenix do when it I'm saying it's not Phoenix's ball. The ref called it Phoenix's ball, but I think they went over and they didn't want to overrule their call on the floor. I don't know, and I don't think they had a better angle to show exactly from the baseline view, but he is 7 feet tall, and it skims off his fingertips last. He, of course, points like it's still our ball. Look at Terrence Mann. If we could see it one more time, he just immediately turns and claps and goes the other way. Like, we got that. We just won the basketball game.
But, Skip, they always do that. I mean...
okay, but this is not even close. This is off Ayton. He's 7 feet tall to 6'5", and that's off Ayton. It's plain as day to me, even from this overview angle.
Well, the last 2 minutes was longer than the whole fourth quarter.
Okay, I got it. It took 33 minutes to go the last 90 seconds, 33 clock minutes, because we reviewed everything. And I don't have a problem with the review and getting it right. It just takes so long.
But, Skip, but you do realize that they reviewed a call that they didn't even call a foul on. You can't review Patrick Beverley. You didn't call a foul. But Patrick Beverley flopped, and then they went to it, and it's like, well, we got to call something because we stopped play. So they gave an offensive foul to Devin Booker. Skip, you can't do that.
Okay, but I did think Devin Booker caught him with his elbow up in his face.
Okay, well, go ahead and call a foul.
But they were reviewing for flagrant one.
Right,
okay?
but you can't do that, Skip, because you didn't call anything.
Okay, well, they did finally say offensive foul, but he didn't get called on the floor. Okay, I got it. Okay, so now this brings us to the fateful last play. And to your point, it happened so fast, it took me 10 seconds just to compute what had just happened because I couldn't figure it out. And I've got DeMarcus Cousins at 6'11",
right,
trying to bother the inbounds pass, and unfortunately he was trying to play for it to go backcourt,
right.
you know, like go to the go over his head
right.
instead of sideways.
Right.
And how Crowder got it past the edge of the backboard because he's on the baseline.
Yes.
Because the ball off Ayton goes out on the baseline. Well, how he got it past the corner? Listen. It was the ultimate horse shot by Jay Crowder because I think it would have gone in without Ayton.
That's what I was thinking.
All Ayton needs to do is just guide it on down, just aid it.
That's something Luka would do.
Yeah,
remember we saw
that's
Luka
a Luka shot. No, it is, or a Steph shot.
Yeah.
Or something. What? It's a trick shot.
Yes.
Okay.
I was paused just like you were, Skip. I was like, okay, everybody celebrate. I was like, did it go in?
Okay, and here's the other robbery part for me. And I realize this is at Phoenix, and people are saying it's one of the loudest crowds in the NBA, and they're jacked out of their minds because of this playoff run they're on, and they're smelling finals. But there's a play that gets made by Ayton as he tries to break off the screen. If we could see the play from the start, he blatantly grabs hold of Zubac's jersey and just yanks him sideways off him. There you go. He yanked him. He grabbed his jersey and yanked him to impede his progress, like he's trying to slow him down so he can't chase.
You want him to call that, Skip?
I want him to call it. Would they call it in the first minute? Yes, they would. It's a blatant foul. Listen, any jersey grab, to me, that's a foul. It's just a foul. It's not like incidental contact, or that could go either way. If you grab the guy who's guarding his jersey or vice versa, it's a foul. You know it, and you could say the refs just missed it, but I didn't miss it. I saw it.
No. I'm not saying that. But I've sat up across from you over the last 5 years and watched you say in the fourth quarter of ball games, football or basketball, the officials are not going to make that call. You have to play through it.
Okay, but that's a let them play call.
Right.
Where they just bang into each other, and it's just physicality. That's not physicality. That's flat out dirty. That's dirty. That's breaking the rule. You cannot grab the man's jersey. And he grabbed him to impede him, to pull him back so that he couldn't get around Booker's screen. And he didn't get around Booker's screen because Ayton got scot-free to the basket.
You know what? In the words of Scott Foster and Kane Fitzgerald, that's a play on.
Play on with a jersey grab? Are you kidding?
Play on.
Yeah, it's a play on because Shannon won the game. That's why it's a play on, because that's just so blatant. And again, if you want to argue to me that they just missed it, that nobody saw it, but the truth is they just didn't have the guts to call it.
Okay, let me ask you a question. 98, you happen to be there. Was that a push-off on Jordan? Should they have called that by the letter of the law?
Yeah, but he didn't grab his jersey and throw him.
Did he push him?
There was a little push, but in that day and age, that never got called. It didn't get called in the first quarter. It was a much more physical game where they allowed a lot more hand checking, right? So this was offense to defense hand checking. Yeah. He got away with a little push. I will give you that. Okay. But they wouldn't have called it in the first quarter either. It was just the way the game wasn't called in 1998.
Well, they were calling some things in the first quarter that they definitely didn't call in the fourth quarter. And I thought, what? I already knew, Skip, once you put Kane Fitzgerald and Scott Foster together, the game's going to go on for perpetuity because they're going to insert themselves into the ball game. You know that, I know that. That's just the way it is. Kane Fitzgerald called an offensive foul on Devin Booker. He's at half court. There's two officials up under the basket. Neither one of them calls it. He's at half court. Go talk about. Stop that.
Okay, I got it. So in the big picture, to your final point, these Clippers are extraordinary to me because they have no quit in them whatsoever.
They don't.
They have this weird way about them that the worse it gets, the better they get.
Right.
Just when you think they're finished, just when they fall behind by 9, Reggie Jackson hits a 3. Or suddenly Luke Kennard is hot and he scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. Right. Or suddenly it's Terrence Mann. It's somebody making a play after a play to keep them barely afloat. Then
Pat Beverly hit a 3.
He hit a big 3. And in fact, Pat Beverly, we'll talk about him later in the show, he doesn't get enough credit for how he can shut down a Devin Booker because he was all over him. And obviously they had an accidental headbutt. I don't know what you thought of it, but I just thought it was purely accidental, and they both took it pretty bad. I think they both probably.
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more with Patrick Beverley because he does a lot of leaning in, and so I'm surprised it doesn't happen more. But he caught him flush.
Okay. But in the end, if you look at the Clippers' playoff run, you see that even when they lose, they never lose by much. They haven't been blown out one time. Even my great Spurs dynasty teams going back over the last 10, 15 years, they would get blown out regularly, even in the finals. Right. There'd be a game where you just say, next.
Right.
Well, they never go next. They have lost all their games by a grand total of a 5-point average. Right. So when they lose, they don't lose by much. And when they win, they can blow you off the court. So now they won games 1 and 2 they played games 1 and 2 at Phoenix, and they won the 3-point contest by 21 points both times. Right. They had 7 more threes in both games.
Right.
And that's how they hung in there.
Right.
So I'm crushed because they needed to do this without Kawhi Leonard. They needed one.
Right.
Now they're really up against it. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. But in the end, my final takeaway from this game was I believe that it's in the league's head that there's some secret memo out there somewhere where once there's no Kawhi Leonard and he is not coming back for the rest of the playoffs, they need Phoenix in the finals. Chris Paul is coming back on Thursday night. We're about to discuss that.
Right.
So with Chris Paul and Devin Booker and an emerging superstar in Deandre Ayton, they need Phoenix in the finals. And congratulations, you probably just pulled that off.
Skip, but you look at the balance scoring. Again, remember the other night they had 6 guys in double figures. Phoenix did. Last night they had 5 guys in double figures. Now the difference that the Clippers are running into, that big man Deandre Ayton, he's different than Rudy Gobert. They can actually throw him the ball, and he can go make a play for himself.
Well, he can make 10, 15-foot jump shots.
And Skip, if you see the difference in defense, Reggie Jackson had him on skates. He was about to jump up in the air. Reggie crossed him over, and he went and blocked it and saved it. See, Rudy Gobert couldn't do that. Kristaps Porzingis can't do that. Nope. So this is a different type of a big man than what they're used to. And he shoots a high percentage. You know, Rudy Gobert, basically, you throw lobs, Skip. He get it up no, they passed the ball. He was facing up a Zubats and nailing 12, 15-footer. So you got to treat him differently. But give them, Skip, in the second half, the Suns shot 2 of 14 from 3, but they were 19 of 25 from 2. And they were 12 or 13 from the free throw line.
They're a 2-point and a free throw team. That's what they do.
Because if you think about it, Skip, they're 3 best players. Now, Book and CP3 can make threes, but that's not their game. Their game is mid-range. Deandre Ayton is not even attempting that. So their best 3 players are basically great in the mid-range and at the basket. So I'm not surprised to see this, but I am surprised that they shot so poorly. Jay Crowder did not have a great game. And basically, that play at the end basically saved.
Well, he made no field goals. So he was 0 for, except for 1 pass.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even, Skip, he only took 3 shots. He was 0 for 3 from 3, but he was, perfect from the free throw line, a couple of rebounds. But give them credit, Skip. I mean, you want them to call this. See, you want all the team. You want every call to go to the Clippers, especially if they lose, when they've gotten some calls. Skip, you know good.
Those are the calls. Those 2 calls decided the basketball game.
No.
It's as simple as that.
Well, Skip,
nothing matters. If it's off DeAndre Ayton, out of bounds, and you review that and you say, I'm sorry, it's off him, the game is over.
They reviewed it.
It's over.
First of all, Skip, let me ask you a question. When you saw it in real time, did you think that ball was off Book, that Patrick Beverley knocked out of bounds?
Yes. You look at my timeline. I dare you. Go look at my timeline. I immediately tweeted that ball last touched Booker's hand. I tweeted it immediately.
You did.
You can check.
But I tell you what, I did a tweet. I was thinking to myself, I said,
you
Paul,
tweet?
No, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you tweeted.
Yeah, Skip, I was like, I was sitting there. I was like, Paul George is going to miss both of these free throws.
Did you?
I started typing. I said, he's going to miss the next one. He's going to miss the next one also.
You did tweet that, too.
And I tweeted it.
Yes, I
tweeted it?
I tweeted it. I know it.
Did you tweet he was going to miss both of them?
I was saying to myself in my head.
Oh, one of those tweets.
No, but let me
one of those I was thinking it tweets.
But I did tweet.
Love those.
I did tweet, he going to miss this next one.
Okay. Well, that was gutsy of you. Yeah.
You hated it. Oh, you were sick. That's when you hit the floor, didn't you? You started yelling at Ernestine. Ernestine, you don't deserve this. Hazel, you do not deserve this.
I yelled a bad word. I did.
Well,
I
at
admit
least
it.
you started the show with an apology, right? I appreciate that.
Yeah, you need to
Ernestine,
apologize some more.
We are
Ernestine don't
sorry that
deserve
you
this
had to
gift.
listen
She
to
doesn't.
that
She
last
really
night.
doesn't.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.